Hello friends, it's Jonathan at the Piano Lesson. Welcome back for another fun-filled installment. And today I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time on Tenor Madness because there were things in there that I thought would be fun to explore. When I learn a piece of music, learning a piece of music to me means just being curious about it. Finding things that I like about it, experimenting with it, all of the things that one generally doesn't really do or think of doing when you're learning a piece of music. Usually, especially as a beginner, we're concerned more with just, music is hard enough as it is, the piano is hard enough it is, without experimenting, right? We're maybe not quite ready to have something blow up in our face, but we're learning the notes, we're learning the basic rhythms. And frankly, a lot of that can be done faster by ear. I don't think it precludes learning to read music. I think they're not mutually exclusive, and you should, learn to read music. But all music is by ear. Even if you say you don't play by ear, I mean, music is something we listen to, so it's all by ear. And but trying to be curious about it and have fun with it and explore some things in it. And if you're inclined to improvising, well, that's where you get to take your ideas and run with them and see where they'll take you. And also just the idea that these pieces that we play, they're just a kernel of an idea, right? They're a seed. They're meant to be fleshed out and embellished, and every time another musician plays them, there's a potential for it to become something else. Kind of like seeds in nature, right? And you can kind of cross-pollinate and make things happen, and that's the whole fun of it. You don't have to be very rigid-minded about how the tune is written. And I also thought I might share some of my insights about chords, because once we get beyond just sort of getting comfortable with learning basic triads, seventh chords, and diatonic sevenths, just knowing those basic chords isn't enough. I mean, it's a starting place, but it's a bit like painting. Just because you have all the pigments there and you have the red and the green and the blue, and they need to be mixed. It's not just a paint by numbers affair where you just put one color in one little box. I don't know if that means anything to anyone, but years ago they had these little games, these paint by number games, where you would get a drawing of an object, like maybe a flower or something, and then it would have like the number 1 in a little various parts, and then you paint the number 1 parts red and the number 2 parts blue, and then you'd end up with a picture that, I don't know, looks like a bunch of splatters of paint, really. But you have to kind of learn how to play in the cracks to really make your music and to really make the song come alive. Otherwise it can kind of just sound flat and dead and too generic. But that's the whole fun about jazz, is playing in between the cracks, that ambiguity between major and minor, which really is the hallmark of, I think, American music. It just is indefinable. Although we try to define it, we use the word blues. So I'll give you some examples of what I mean here. First of all, if you come across a marking for, say, a diminished 7 chord, okay? So in this case, let's say it's a D flat diminished 7. So D flat F flat, or let's do I guess something like that. Let's call it. Actually, I'm going to rewrite it because I want to avoid certain double flats. Let's call it. Listen to that harmony there. So what did I do there? Well, in the left hand, I have C sharp, E, G, and B flat. Right? That's C sharp diminished. C sharp diminished. It's just a root position chord, really. This is "Come Fly With Me." All right, kind of. Frank Sinatra kind of made this famous. I like listening. Monty Alexander has a great version of it. But come fly with me. And by the way, if there's one chord written, so if you look in the sheet music, it's going to say B flat major 7, or it's going to say maybe B flat 6, right? But the melody is "Come fly with me." Now, if you play B flat major 7 over the melody, it's going to sound bad. So you have to kind of use your ear and use a little bit of common sense. If the melody note is the tonic, right? You probably don't want a major 7 chord and this against the 7th against the tonic. So you probably want a 6th, right? Something like that. Root 6th, or root 6th, 9th. Maybe stick the 3rd in, something like that. But the melody is F, C, B flat. When you play the C, well, you could play the major 7. That'll sound fine. I mean, that sounds fine, right? But then you change basically the same chord, right? But two different colorations. Let's call that a coloration, okay? This is B flat 6, 9. This is B flat major 7 with the 9th on the top. Come, and it's probably F7. Come. That's another harmony that I like there. But basically F7 there. I'll get to that in a second. Come fly with me. Now B flat again. First inversion. Fly. Very different quality to it because we got rid of the root. Let's fly away, fly away. I think that's it. I think that's the melody. Fly away. Yes, I think the melody is E flat. Come fly with me. Come fly, let's fly. This chord here. C sharp diminished. Fly away. C minor 7, F7, 2, 5. Right? Pretty straightforward harmony. But when I play the diminished, I don't just do this. I don't do let's fly. Oh, that works, but I prefer to use a diminished chord a whole step above the chord of the letter name of the chord. So this would be D sharp, diminished 7, D sharp, F sharp, A, C, just root position chords, right? But together, should have written a C sharp here. C sharp, E, G, B flat, D sharp, F sharp, A, C. Right? Now, why does that work? Well, it works because they're part of the same scale, believe it or not. And actually, there's the one chord we're missing from the scale is what do we use here? Right? Those are the two minor tetrachords, the C sharp tetrachord and the G tetrachord, or E minor, F sharp minor, E minor, then G minor, then B flat minor. Right? Kind of those are 4 minor tetrachord groups kind of overlapping. Right? And but that's one of the kind of tricks that I use. And the other trick is, that's probably nicer, a little brighter sounding. I don't have the fifth in there. I have the root, the seventh, the third, the 13, and the ninth. So there's no fifth. No. That's not bad. That's maybe more the sound I'm after. I don't know. Now that's stacked fourth, so that's a quartal harmony, right? Or even though it's minor, you could substitute the sharp 9, that C7 sharp 9, F7, and the first chord, as I said, the melody is F. Well, on top of that, if it says F7, I have a G minor 7 over the top of that. So what does that make that? Well, it's the root and the 7th, the 9th, 11, 13, and then the root. So it's basically F7 with an added 9th, 11, and 13. I think it's easier to think of it as just two simpler chords. Now, just looking at that, though, isn't going to tell you much necessarily. But so I'm trying to fit the voicing in with the melody. The melody, you always want the melody note to be the highest note. Come fly with me, come fly. I added the C in there. I like that little dissonance. This is what I was talking about playing in the cracks. You know, I could do this. That's a little pure. I could do this. I don't like that quite as much, but I like this. Generally, we try not to double notes, and we try not to have the fifth in the chord, but somehow it just sort of works. It's kind of okay. That's not bad. That's not bad either. Fly, let's fly. There's our mishmash chord. So you could express this, potentially. You could express it maybe as, you know, D sharp, diminished 7, horizontal line, C sharp, diminished 7. They used to call those polychords. That's actually literally, if you see a horizontal line and you'd have two chords, one on top of another. If I play the diminished scale diatonically, right, you'll see the second chord in the scale. That's the second chord. Third chord, right? So, and if I want to play all the notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and if I played one more stacked chord without duplicating any of the notes, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? Those are all the notes. Listen to that sound. Boy, that's something else, huh? Now, there's no, I shouldn't say that. There's no D diminished chord diatonically in that scale, but that's fine. I mean, in that scale, there's no D, there's no F, there's no A flat, there's no B at all. These are the notes. Right. And then this, come fly, let's fly away. There's our stacked fourth, that's our quartal harmony. And then here. Now what is that? Well, it's a big, again, we're talking about playing in the cracks today. We're talking about playing clusters of notes. That's called a cluster. So it's an F chord, it's basically F7. That's a sound that I like a lot. Again, as a general rule, I wouldn't be doubling the seventh, except for the fact that the seventh is the melody. And I like the idea of having the melody pronounced, but that's the ninth, that's the third. Probably not a bad idea to have the third in the chord, but not always. And then the sharp 11, and probably not that. But I like that cluster of sounds, and that's something that there's really no chord symbol for. You know, I'm just grabbing at sound. You know, I'm grabbing at this. I mean, a dominant chord is basically, or it's a Mixolydian mode. Now, I don't have the B flat in there. I have the B natural in there. Now, if somebody wants to tell me what scale that is, be my guest. I don't know really what scale that would be. Mixolydian sharp 4? I don't know. I have no idea, but typically I would think of that as a G major triad, that sharp 11. That basically is a Lydian sound. So that's this. I like playing this. That's an E flat major 7 chord. It sounds kind of grumbly and nasty just by itself, but I like the way the chord feels. To hear that, not the way it sounds so much, but I like the feel of it. I like the impact it has. And when you put it together with this, see, that doesn't sound so bad anymore. If I play this by itself, that's a little more unintelligible, but if I do this, that makes more sense. I put the root with it. See? So, I hope this makes some sense. It's just not just a bunch of lunatic ramblings. But you see, I'm getting away from just on one hand, I'm getting away from the basic sort of textbook chords, but on the other hand, I'm really not. In some instances, I'm playing very, very basic, triads and seventh chords, but the difference is that I'm layering them. See, so and I just do it based on how I like the sound. So that's that. For instance, another chord that if you see a dominant chord like F7, for instance, okay, that sounds fine, and usually that kind of basic voicing works well in a blues, but I typically will never play that root position voicing. I'll typically will play one of two voicings for a dominant chord. I will play this. All right, so that's a rootless voicing. There's no root in there. It's an F chord, but there's no F. Okay, there is an E flat. There's a G. There's an A, and there's a D. All right, E flat, G, A, D. That's F13. Right. It's actually and it has an added ninth in there as well. That's the ninth, the D. Right. So it's the 7th, 9th, 3rd, and 13. The other way to play that same chord is to take the bottom two notes, bring them up here, right? And now that chord's still a rootless voicing. I call that a close position voicing, but you have A, D, E flat, E flat, and what do we have here? G, right? E, F, G, yeah, G. I had to think about that for a second. How do I know that's, that's a hard note to read. There's like 3 leisure lines up. How do I know that that's a G real quick? Well, because this is a G, that G I know real well. That's always a space note. And I know that if this is an octave higher, and I know that octaves always work where if the lower note's a space note, the upper one has to be a line note, or vice versa, right? So it's just a quick way. The F, for instance, the line note, that's one note you should always know, right? But if that is the F and that's on a line, then that's the space, an octave higher. Okay, so that's kind of like the quick way to find those notes. Now, how do I know which voicing I want to use? Well, again, it has to do with what I like the sound of, but also where I am in the register of the piano. This is too low. That's just unintelligible. I can't hear that. This is a good register. This isn't a bad register for the close position. That's a little too low as well. You know, I don't think I'd really want to use that. And the other thing I'd consider is, well, where am I within the proximity of the melody in the right hand? Am I going to bump my hand? Am I going to play the melody an octave higher? You know, but whenever I see F, like a basic dominant chord like F7, that's kind of the voicing I'm gonna use. So, and what was this? This is the 3rd, 13, 7th, and 9th. If you know that just those two voicings, you can make a whole lot of music. I mean, but the music's going to sound more like jazz, right? And it's not just going to sound like like folk music or rock and roll or something, you know, something like that. Now, I mentioned talking about tenor madness. So I think when you're exploring a tune, so the tune, just to review, is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last part, minor. I could even just play straight F7. And better. I could just play those three chords: B flat 7, E flat 7, F7. A lot of people will do 2-5 to F, C minor 7, F7. A lot of people will play the 6th chord. And because of that note, G7, that would be sharp 9. Interesting, the music, for some weird reason, has G7, sharp 11. I just happen to be looking at a chart right now, and it says sharp 11. There is no sharp 11 there. Why on earth would it be sharp 11? It's ridiculous. But if that's the note you're playing, if that's the melody note, and this is G7, and clearly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sharp 9, that would be spelled as A sharp and not B flat. But what are the themes in here? Well, there's this triad, right? And this is a minor triad. All right? And then how about doing the same thing over the E flat? And then how about doing the same thing over the F? So being able to do, yeah. Does that sound kind of interesting? These are the sort of things I'd mess around with. That's a C minor triad over the E flat 7. That's a D minor triad over the F7. Now making it into the diminished, right? Same or similar idea. So if you're doing an improvisation, I would probably want to incorporate that sound, or this is this and this combined. Right? Again, playing in the cracks. What makes the song sound so interesting? It's because there's this ambiguity here. That's the blue note, right? The flatted third and the major third. Now I could keep playing the same notes in the right hand over and over and over again. That's one of the things about the blues, where you can keep playing. In essence, you're playing one chord in the right hand. You're playing the tonic. You're playing the B flat chord in the right hand, but your chords are changing underneath. So you have a constant and a variable, and you get that juxtaposition, that kind of grinding sound. But that's kind of the essence of the blues. Now, there's a lot of other little motifs, right? Little motivic devices, that little nuggets that we can pull out of that song. And it would be good, if I was going to give you an assignment, I'd say, hey, make a list of 3 ideas. That might be the first one. So get 2 other ideas that you could cull out of the song, right? And then put them together. Start with one, exploit, the word is exploit one of them on 1-4-5, exploit another one on 1-4-5, exploit the third one on 1-4-5, listen to them, and then try to combine them. Take 2 and try to combine them. Take 3 and try to combine them. Now you're juggling, you're sort of juggling these balls in the air, right? And surprisingly though, I don't see many people interested in doing that. Although I really think that's the best way to go about learning to improvise and learning a tune. And making it your own, making it, kind of reinventing it. Okay, we're out of time here, and I'm going to have to get going, but I had fun as always, and I hope you did too. And regards to my buddy Francesco and all the commenters, and thank you for coming and listening. And we have our own little exclusive club here, just for us. So this is Jonathan Piano Lesson signing off, and you can also visit me at thepianolesson.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.